Okay, hello everybody. My name is Robert Gorsuch. I'm a senior sales engineer with Actian. With me today is Shampar Chaudhary. She's the director of product marketing for our data integration platform. Today I want to talk about the integration manager, what it is and what it can do for you for data integration. So the integration manager is a microservices architecture that was built with a cloud-first design principle. The services it manages can be deployed in private and public cloud environments or on-premise and has the same user interface and RESTful API regardless of the deployment model. Every integration that is deployed and configured in the Integration Manager is automatically assigned a URL endpoint that can be consumed by client applications. Effectively, all integrations are real-time enabled and available as an API default. So in summary, the features include that you can run, schedule, manage, and monitor DataConnect and Dataflow jobs from the same platform. It provides hierarchical configuration that allows you to share artifacts, macros, and files across users with less duplication. As mentioned already, it allows you to expose any job configuration, any integration as an API endpoint. Jobs can be created programmatically and executed on the fly. Jobs can be monitored in real time. Notifications can be configured to automatically trigger once a job fails or is aborted. And you can scale and partition workloads across engine pools and remote engines for elasticity and scalability purposes. The group management simplifies the sharing process of job templates, and all functionality is delivered through APIs. Anything you can do through the UI, you can also do programmatically. So let's take a closer look at the services that Integration Manager provides. The Integration Manager services start with authorization. The services include authentication and account management for controlling user access, modification, and execution of all integration objects. Authorization keys are provided by the API and support OAuth 2 token-based and basic authentication. OAuth 2 security can be provided using an additional secret key for any integration. When SSL is enabled on the Integration Manager server, all communication traffic uses HTTPS and is encrypted using your own certificates. This includes payload data of input and output messages via the file listener and HTTP listener. And in the event unauthorized client code or human error cannot be authenticated, the user will be automatically locked out from subsequent requests for a configurable amount of time or until an admin manually resets the user's login. User and group management. Groups can be used for large-scale user management and securing access to integration objects. An admin user can assign ownership to any other user within the account, which facilitates transfer of the integration collateral as new users become active and other users leave the organization. Group sharing capability allows you to share job templates with multiple users. And finally, fine-grained access control allows you to limit read, write, and execute privileges. Configuration. A simple but powerful parent-child hierarchy enables reuse and change propagation at the template level, but allows complete customization using overrides for the configuration. The template and configuration wizard automatically imports macros and sample values from the package integration created in the DataConnect Design Studio. This makes for an easier handoff from the dev team to the operations team. The history database records all integration job information, including who submitted the job for governance purposes. The job history database and the configuration database have also been externalized so users can leverage their existing database assets and customize reporting and analysis of the integration platform usage. Currently, we support both MySQL, Microsoft SQL, and the H2 embedded database as part of the repository. Administrators of an on-premise deployment will also appreciate the latest job history management features. A simple configuration setting can increase or decrease the amount of job history that is retained. This can be used to easily reduce clutter in non-production environments where a lot of testing is done, but extend history in production environments where it is more important, once again, for governance purposes. API calls support getting lists of DataConnect integration objects and their specific configuration details. So for job scheduling and execution, the job configuration execution service allows complete control of all integration jobs, including parameter inputs, credentials, scheduling, and real-time execution. The Integration Manager API provides synchronous as well as asynchronous job execution. This allows you the flexibility of invoking integrations using what we call fire and forget for higher scale or request response for tighter coupling. The latest user interface is built directly on top of the new API, which shows improved responsiveness and dashboard updates. The same API user interface and Runtime Engine versions are shared across all deployment options, so you will have the same user experience and client interfaces for cloud or on-premise for a truly hybrid experience. The real-time listener automatically provides a REST API endpoint for each integration by adding an aliasing scheme. This allows you to use a more user-friendly, human-readable name in place of the configuration ID as part of the URL. Because the alias is used in place of the ID, different versions of the configurations can be easily swapped out on the server without impacting client code. An API key can quickly be generated and associated to each alias when it's created that automatically enables basic authentication. The aggregator service is an event processing service via DataConnect or Dataflow, which aggregates messages into microbatches for efficient and faster processing. The results processor provides log-level support added to configurations, agent updates to improve heartbeat monitoring, engine updates, and license management. And the job notification service provides abort error notification for individual job configurations and global and default email addresses for notification support. Auto alert email recipient configurations can be set up to automatically send notifications upon error or abort of a job. And then finally, the agent framework or the worker agent framework is available for local and private cloud deployments. This makes it easier to add worker nodes to an integration manager server cluster for high availability and to take advantage of multiple engine concurrency and benefit from priority routing of integration jobs to dedicated nodes. So in summary, what the agent framework provides is it allows you to have that true hybrid experience by being able to interface and interact with both on-premise and cloud-based data sources. Additional services for controlling agents, ancillary files, and runtime destinations provide more flexibility and customization for any use case. All of the features of Integration Manager are documented and available through the web, which I will show here shortly in the live demo. Platform support has been extended to Linux for local deployments of the DataConnect Integration Manager server and agents for DataCloud iPaaS users. Kubernetes savvy teams will love the ability to deploy a portable DataCloud using Helm chart automation. This enables our customer who use their own virtual private clouds the same elastic scalability benefits that Actian enjoys for our hosted DataConnect iPaaS environments. So let's go ahead and take a closer look at the Integration Manager. But before we do that, what I want to do is I just want to do a quick review of how you deploy an integration built with the DataConnect Design Studio. So for this purpose, I already have the Design Studio opened and a number of artifacts or maps and processes already pre-configured and ready to be deployed. So later on in the demo in the Integration Manager, I will show you some automatic execution of various integration jobs. And for the purposes of this demo, we are using some collateral that has a healthcare focus, and the integrations that I will be showing use process EDI or healthcare information and populate that into our Avalanche database. So there's a number of processes that I want to show you. So for this particular demo, we're going to go round robin. We're going to show a typical inbound process where we are processing an on-premise file and then storing it encrypting it and packing it before we store it into a secure FTP location. Reversely, we're going to then pick up that integration package on the secure FTP site, unpack it, decrypt it, send it through a validation routine, and then send the results to a message queue. And then finally, we're going to take the information that is now inside the message queue, do some transformation on it, and then loads the data directly into the data warehouse. So that is just a review of some of the integration artifacts. I'll be showing you the integration manager. So let's take a closer look on how you can quickly and easily deploy any integration artifacts to the integration manager. For this purpose, I have opened up a map or a transformation object that allows me to extract data out of a database. In this case, it is Actian Vector or our Actian Avalanche on-premise offering. And we're just simply doing an export into a CSV file. The mapping then allows me to do to link field by field as the data is presented in the database table, and then create that CSV file on the fly. If I execute that out of the Design Studio, first by validating to make sure that everything is correctly configured, I can run this integration right here out of the Design Studio, and then it will give me an indication of the number of records and some of the other things that this particular map has done. So in this particular case, we read 1,662 records, and we wrote 1,662 records. So let's go ahead and deploy this map. In order to deploy that, you simply right-click on the respective project folder within the Project Explorer of the Design Studio. Right-click on it, select New, and Package. You then give the package an intuitive name, a name that refers to the underlying business process that the integration serves. The next step is to choose a runtime configuration or a so-called entry point. In this particular case, we're going to use the map that I just showed you, which is called Service Line to CSV. And then we simply click Finish. And then it creates what we call an inventory file. The inventory file then allows you to review the associated artifacts based on the entry point of that package. And since this is the first time we are creating this package, we apply some simple versioning that allows you to do version control going forward in the design process. So now lastly, you just click on Create Package, and then everything that is part of the integration project is packed into one single integration file, a so-called djar file, which now resides locally on my directory. Okay, so let's now finally switch to Integration Manager. I've already logged into the Integration Manager. The front end of the Integration Manager is browser-based. In the back end, there's a service running, once again, compatible with most operating systems, including Windows and Linux. So the server component runs as a service, and the front end is provided via an internet browser. So I've already logged in, and as you log in, it takes you directly to the dashboard. The dashboard gives you an overview of all of the integrations that have already run and give you the status code, the runtime, and a direct link to the log file that then indicates step by step what happens during that integration. Going back to the dashboard, let's go ahead and now deploy that, that integration that we've just packaged in DataConnect. For that purpose, I'm going to switch over from the dashboard to templates. So we're going to go ahead and add a new integration by simply clicking the Add button. And what that does, it then kicks off our wizard that steps you through all of the vital steps necessary to deploy an integration package. The first step, of course, we need to attach that integration file that we have just created. So for that purpose, I'm going to go to my project folder and to the packages folder. And then I'm going to use that integration package that I've just created, which I previously called demo. And it is version 1.0. As I attach that file, the wizard now kicks off. And as you can see, there are 4 steps to completing all of the necessary steps to deploy. So we've chosen our package. It already recognized the inherited entry point. And the run location now will be on the server itself. And the log level is set to standard info. All of these parameters can be changed. And the run location refers to setups where you have a client server type configuration or a worker server configuration in order to scale out both horizontally and vertically as mandated by the workload in your particular case. So I'm going to go ahead and click next. And now the next step is it automatically recognized the macro sets. Macros are name value pairs that act as global variables that make integrations completely dynamic. A typical use for macros is for use of access credentials and endpoints. And of course, each and every one of these macro values can be secured or encrypted, and that is especially vital for passwords or other sensitive information. I'm just going to go ahead and click next. And now it shows me the files that are associated with the integration package, and that is first and foremost the package we created in Design Studio. If there are additional files that were needed, such as key value lookup files, they could be added at this point. And then finally, we click next just to review the configuration that we're about to create, and then we create the template. Now, I've already chosen that once the template is created, it will automatically create a configuration against it. So what's the difference between templates and configurations? The difference is that the purpose behind segmenting integrations into templates and configurations, first and foremost, is it allows you to deploy one integration project once to the integration manager and then spawn multiple different configurations to separate, for instance, development from production, or running the same integration for multiple clients, only separated by the access credentials that are relevant to that particular integration. So now as the wizard finished deploying the template, it automatically created a configuration. I can now go ahead and run that configuration right here out of the UI. And as I click that, what I will do is I will switch back to the dashboard. And this is a quick integration here, and which completed in less than 2 seconds. So now the integration has finished, and I can take a look at my log file to get a closer look at how many records were actually read and how many records were inserted into the CSV file. Right? Okay, so that was just a quick review of how you package, deploy integration integration projects to the integration manager. So let's go ahead once again and take a closer look at configurations. All of the configuration details are accessible through the Details tab, and once I click on a particular configuration, it will show me all of the jobs and their unique IDs that have executed in the past, their runtimes, the location it ran on, and then a direct link to the runtime log. For further configurations, I'm going to go ahead and click on Details. This particular configuration is based on a template, which is called 837p load, made up of an integration package created by the Design Studio with the following entry point. Currently, I don't have a schedule associated with it. So by default, any configuration is set for on-demand only for ad hoc execution. If I wanted to change the schedule, if I wanted to periodically execute that configuration, I can just go ahead and add its schedule. And we have some pre-built intervals as part of the configuration available. So we can define any interval segmented in days, hours, minutes, or seconds, or we can use any custom expression or so-called cron expression for more irregular execution profiles of an integration. So for the purposes of this demo, I'm just going to do a simple daily run. I'm going to choose to run every single day at a particular time, such as 12:30 a.m., and then I can go ahead and just save that. So now this particular integration is deployed and it is scheduled. And for many use cases, that is really one of the main purposes of the integration manager, to allow you to automate and orchestrate all of the integrations that you built with DataConnect inside of the integration manager. So going back to the configurations, let's go ahead and execute an integration that does a little bit more than just the demo that we've just deployed. So once again, I'm going to go ahead and run this integration. This is an integration that processes that healthcare information that I briefly illustrated earlier in DataConnect. And if I go to the dashboard, I can see that the job is currently running. Now it finished. It took 14.2 seconds to run. And now I can access the runtime log. If there were any errors or warnings, especially for long running or very complex integrations, you could drill down straight into the timeline where the error had occurred. In this particular case, we didn't have an error. So if we just review the log file, once again, remember, we were taking a file from disk and we're restoring it into a secure FTP location. Before that, we packed it, we encrypted it for security reasons. And this is what this process did. There's a number of standard log messages that come with each runtime execution, but I've also added a number of custom messages just to facilitate the design and development and make the integration more transparent of what's actually happening in the background. So after I review the log file and determine that there is no error, I'm good to go. Another configuration that I want to execute is the 837p load. This is an integration that will take a little bit longer to run. So I'm going to go ahead and once again hit the run button while switching to the dashboard. So now this integration is running. And we see that in the job status bar, right? We have 4 jobs that finished and 1 is currently running. Now the integration manager can run multiple jobs concurrently or in parallel, depending on the license agreement, on the underlying license agreement for the integration manager. And theoretically, there's no limit to the number of parallel jobs that one instance of integration manager can run. If more integrations have to run, then once again, that client-server model or server-worker model would then come into effect, where one integration manager server is connected to multiple integration manager workers. So that's a quick review of what the integration manager can do right out of the box by using the UI. As I mentioned early on during the introduction is that everything that you can do within the integration manager UI can also be invoked programmatically using the RESTful API of integration manager. Once again, each and every integration that is deployed to the integration manager automatically becomes a RESTful API endpoint. And for that purpose, what I want to do is I want to switch back to DataConnect, because now I want to show you how we can programmatically interact with the integration manager without the need to access the UI itself. So for that purpose, I already have some artifacts open. Let me go ahead and close one project and then focus on the integration manager project here. So let's take a look at this particular job. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go switch back to the integration manager. I'm going to kick off that same configuration that took about 15 seconds to load. I'm going to kick that off and then switch back to the to DataConnect and then run the job here. This particular process logs into the integration manager. It checks to see if it already has an access token. If not, it will log in. If it has an access token, it will then execute a sequence of RESTful API calls that are all well documented and that I will show you at the end of this demo. In this particular case, we're just getting the job statistics, and then we're determining whether a job is still currently running or not, and then it loops continuously until the job has finished. The log file here then indicates exactly what happened, and it will capture all of the key data that it has captured from interfacing with the RESTful API of the integration manager. So the key component that we use within DataConnect, and you could use any other third-party tool that is web services enabled, but the key component here in DataConnect is something we call the REST invoker or web service invoker. So as we're executing various web service calls, we get the familiar result codes for web service operations, primarily a status 200 or that everything was okay, or if the endpoint was down, it would be a 500, or if the access credentials were wrong, it could be a HTTP 401, 403, etc. So everything is conform to the HTTP standards that are inherent to interfacing with web services, to include the ability to inject web service headers, web service payload, etc. So another process that I want to show you here is where we're heavily using the RESTful API of the integration manager is a sequence of different calls that we're going to make against the local instance of my integration manager. First and foremost, we're going to log in. Then we're going to dynamically get the job configuration or configuration ID. Then we're going to get the job statistics of that particular ID. And then we're going to pick, and then we're going to parse out the latest job that was run. And then we're just going to get the log file. And we're all going to do that programmatically using DataConnect. Of course, that goes very quickly. Everything's running on premise. Everything is running against localhost. So let's go ahead and review the log file here. So at the bottom of the log file here, I can see that the latest job finished with an error. It had the following ID or globally unique ID. It had the following configuration ID. It gives me the size of the log file. And this particular integration then stores that log file or actually sends that log file via email to a predefined destination. Other information that I've captured interfacing with the REST API here is indicated in this log file as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a closer look at the documentation. So all of the API documentation, RESTful API documentation is available online. So each and every request response sequence that you can execute is well documented here by expanding on the different sections that make up the Integration Manager API. And just like with any other web service, or more specifically RESTful service, there are a number of calls where you get information or you post information to the Integration Manager. And then it will give you all of the required information that needs to be passed on with that with the respective web service call. So for instance, if you want to run a job, you simply post something to the endpoint, to the Integration Manager endpoint. In this particular case, we need to pass in a payload or a body formatted in JSON. And the documentation then tells you exactly what you need to do in order to make successful web service calls and get the most out of the Integration Manager API. And that's pretty much everything I wanted to show you today. A brief intro into what Integration Manager is, what it can do, how it ties in and how it is tightly coupled with the functionality of the DataConnect Design Studio. I showed you around some of the main sections of the UI and how simple it is to package and deploy something to the Integration Manager. And then we took a brief look at the Integration Manager RESTful API and showed you an example of how you can programmatically interface with the Integration Manager without the need to access to the UI. So at this point, what I would like to do is maybe just open it up for some Q&A. And for that purpose, I'm going to hand it over to Shampa.
Thanks, Robert. Appreciate it. The demo looked awesome. Let's see. A few questions have come up. Let me take the first one. Could you please elaborate on why REST API is so important to Integration Manager and what it is meant to achieve? You showed how it works, but just wanted to see what use cases you can talk about.
Well, okay, that's actually a very good question. And that really speaks to the core of what the REST API can do. So we recognize that many customers' ecosystems are very diverse, right? There's a number of applications and databases, cloud-based applications, custom code that make up the backbone, the business process backbone for many customer ecosystems that we see. So there's already an existing stack of software that facilitates all of the internal business processes when it comes to moving data from one system to the next, when it comes to doing data integration. So if, for instance, you have a web server that provides a front-end application, maybe for internal, maybe for external purposes, then you can use the RESTful API of the Integration Manager to complement your existing code to kick off integrations, to create integrations, and to leverage all of the monitoring and notification aspects that the Integration Manager provides without ever having to access the UI itself.
That sounds great. Well, there's another question that came up. You mentioned how DataCloud provides a fully hosted iPaaS deployment of Integration Manager. Could you please shed some light on how Integration Manager can be hosted on a virtual private cloud or customer's own cloud?
So yeah, absolutely. And that is another great question. And it really speaks to two things, right? It speaks to our hybrid story. By hybrid, if you want to be able to serve a truly hybrid environment, what you would need is a software architecture that can be both deployed on-premise or in the cloud, public cloud or private cloud, and have that same user experience across all platforms. So we're looking at the Integration Manager now, and this happens to be an on-premise installation of the Integration Manager, but this is the same UI that if the Integration Manager was hosted in a private cloud. Furthermore, we provide the Integration Manager as a fully hosted and managed experience by Actian, so completely hands-off, something we sometimes refer to as DataCloud, and then that directly ties into our latest offering, which is Actian Avalanche, our fully hosted and managed enterprise data warehouse solution. And so through the integration, through the hosted Integration Manager, which we then call Avalanche Connect, then allows you to directly ingest data into our enterprise data warehouse called Avalanche, or any other data warehouse that you might be using. So the experience is the same across the board, across all platforms. So I hope that answered the question.
Yes, Robert, I think I would want to add one more thing, right? If you are a DataConnect customer who's on V9 or V10 and you want to upgrade to V11, right? You get Integration Manager included within that V11 subscription. And by doing that, that you can really very seamlessly upgrade to Avalanche Cloud Data Warehouse if you want. So it's a seamless upgrade path, if you will. Um, so at this point, Robert, I don't have any questions. I would really want to thank you for your time today. It was a great webinar and a wonderful demo. And I would really like to thank the participants for your time today. And the recording would be available on the website. Thank you so much, Robert. Appreciate your time today.
Absolutely, Shampath. Thank you very much.